Hey there, everybody. Now that you've gone through and you've had a chance to read over both the pseudocode terms and the pseudocode style um, documents, and you've had a chance potentially to go back and watch the pseudocode terms screencast, this should help get you a start with the pseudocode style. Now, you will notice that this particular document has a lot more examples than it does anything else. And honestly, at this stage in the game, I am perfectly willing and perfectly happy to have you follow along with the document in general. I just want to give you a start here with a couple of big ticket items to expect. And really, I mean this, is the first couple of assignments are really aimed at being draft assignments. So my expectation is that you are going to hand in version 1 of a document, and you and I are going to work together, via the LMS Eagle. We are going to work together via Eagle to help fine-tune your pseudocode until it's right on track. Again, pseudocode, like C++, like Java, like French, like learning Mandarin, all of these are languages and they take time. You don't work with a toddler and say, no, 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 you keep saying eated when you meant ate the Cheerios. That's not the way this works. The way it works is you get comfortable saying, I eated the Cheerios, and then sooner or later, through socialization, you learn, no, I ate the Cheerios. This is the same thing. You're going to start out, my expectation is, with day and week, and you'll be socialized through the handing in of assignments and the negotiation through those drafts of, no, 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 I really meant day of month, I really meant client first name, I really meant client last name. And all of those things are perfectly okay, and frankly, that's in my experience, that's been the better way to do it, is rather than try to learn it in a clinical, sterile environment. Learn it by just getting your hands dirty by putting code down, and then let's get it more and more correct as we go through. Now, starting with the pseudocode style document, we're here on page 1 with variables. Now, something I do want to mention here to variables is there is a variable podcast in this either this or the next session's module. Don't worry about some of the things we're going to say here. I know I'm getting ahead of the game by doing so, but I'm just planting some seeds so that you can have the idea of variables percolate, and we'll come back to them a little bit later on. So variables are as follows. Single word variables will be lowercase. I would argue that you'll have infrequent single word variable names, but a variable would be something like address, and that would be all lowercase. A variable could be something like color, and that would be all lowercase. If you have multiple word variables, this is where we would use camel, like camel, the desert dwelling animals that people use in place of horses. The idea behind calling it camel case is we would have the first word is all lowercase, and then subsequent words are mixed case. So you would see uppercase and lowercase the way we see it here with day of month. We have day is all lowercase, the O of is uppercase, and the M of month is uppercase, but everything else is lowercase. So we're going to take a look at what that's going to look like. So we'll go over here to a blank document, and when we use variables, again, we just use them if they're single word variables in lowercase, or if they're multiple word variables, they'll be in camel or mixed case. My suggestion to you is that in order to make it as clear as possible, always use more than one word. So we have day, we have month, we have, I'm trying not to let these be automatically capitalized. We have day, we have month, we have year. That's fine, but you'll notice if we had kind of a line of pseudocode here, those would be difficult to see if they were just dropped into the line. So it is better to say day of month, month of year, and year, I don't know, of service, or whatever it is. This is much more indicative. It shows the next developer in the chain that, hey, this is probably a variable as opposed to day, month, year, and there's a little bit of ambiguity there. Do you mean for me to just drop the day of the week in there? Do you mean for me to drop the month of the year in there? This way, with multiple word variables, it's much easier for the next developer in the chain to get the idea of what it is that you're looking to do. Next, I suggest, instead of things like name or address, that's really incomplete. Name could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. For anybody who's ever been in the military, for anybody who's ever worked or been in, I suppose, a prison, for anybody who's ever been in, frankly, a whole host of different different situations, we would say name would be last name followed by first name. So Wolf Eric in my case. So Smith Stephen A in some cases. This is maybe not normal, but it's one potential way to do it. Could I be expecting, Stephen A. Smith or Smith Stephen A? There's a lot of ambiguity there. Better than something simple like name or address is to be as complete as possible and to actually accept more variables rather than less variables. So better than name would be first name. Better than address would be street name followed by house, number. It's hard to type and talk at the same time sometimes when the coffee's running out. So house number would be better because that lets us know that we're expecting, 1600 Pennsylvania. So here we could have 1600, and here in street name would be Pennsylvania Avenue. And this way there's less ambiguity on behalf of the next developer in the chain, and it's also more clear to the potential future user if we say, please enter street name, please enter house number, as opposed to enter address. There's a lot of ambiguity, there's a lot of leeway there, and we don't necessarily want to give our users a ton of choice. The more choice we restrict, the more the data that the user is going to enter is going to resemble what we expect. So take the time to really flush out what it is that you're looking for. Instead of name and address, street name, house number, first name, last name, middle initial. Something like that. That's much better. There are times when you'll be able to do a little bit of kind of redacting here. There's not a lot of ambiguity to DOB. Anybody who's ever worked frankly with a form anyplace has seen DOB, date of birth. That's fine. If you find that you are working, and many times this is going to be the case when you are working, inside of an industry and you are working between teams of subject matter experts in the healthcare field, in the financial field, etc. There are acronyms that they use. So Rock Valley College is a fantastic example of this because I've never worked for a place that has loved their acronyms as much as Rock Valley College. And I have worked for military and prison institutions who also love their acronyms. So at RVC, already we have RVC. We have WTC for Woodward Technology Center. We have PEC for the Physical Education Center. We have the JCSM for the JCSM. These are acronyms that outside of Rock Valley College, outside of people working for or with Rock Valley College, are going to be hard to discern what they are. But in the cases where you are certain that you are working between parties who are familiar with this, so if you are working with people who work exclusively with Rock Valley College, this is going to be okay to use the acronyms that you see here. But for the most part, make sure it's something that's universally known. So DOB for date of birth is good, but and this is going to be industry dependent, so I don't have a ton of really great examples for you in your specific industry because I don't have an exposure or a knowledge of what you and your specific industry is going to be. So it's best to find out if those acronyms are okay, but in the uses that those acronyms are okay, you can go ahead and use them. So what is that going to look like in practice? Here on page 2 we have the very first one of these RVC style programming, pseudocode programming examples. What I'm going to do is walk through this one with you, but show you a couple of ways to make your pseudocode better even than the examples that we have here. So let's get started. Now I'm going to tell you that I am cheating just a little bit, and I have right here a program called Sublime Text up and running. What I will tell you is we will potentially use Sublime Text. It is free to use. It pretty consistently just badgers you to register for it, but you never have to. The fantastic thing about Sublime Text is it will give us the ability to use line numbers. It is so much easier for me to tell you, let's go back and look at line number 4 and see where the logic goes wrong. Something like that, as opposed to now let's look at the first display after the break, things like that. This is easier. I am putting together a video walkthrough on how to download, install, change, and use Sublime Text, but for the time being, just follow along with this one, and you can follow along with, any writing application you would have on your Mac or your PC or potentially on your iPad, etc. So you can use TextEdit, you can use Word, you can use anything at your disposal. But for the time being, the software, and actually forever, the software doesn't really matter. So down here underneath we have the RVC style, and we're going to start out here with the module name, or in other words, what is it that we're aiming to do here? So we have to give the next developer in the chain an idea of what kind of function is it that we are looking to address here with the module that we're creating. So we're going to simply call it something like display welcome message. I have an extra capital E here. There we go. So module lets our next developer in the chain know that this is a module. It's called display welcome message, and away we go. First and foremost, we are going to prompt. So all caps is what we're going to do to let the next developer in the chain know that we are asking the user to enter in some sort of a response here. And remember, if we put it inside of quotation marks, that means this is exactly what I want you to actually input here. So we'll put something like, please enter a character. So that's going to indicate to the user that we need a character. So a number, a special character, a letter, etc. After we have a prompt, we're going to need to get a get character 1. CHAR or char is the the standard reduction for what character would be. So because I am a big believer in copying and pasting, I'm going to copy lines number 3 and 4, because if I'm going to ask the user to do essentially the same thing, a couple of times, I can reduce the amount of code I have to type by copying and pasting. So please enter another character, get character 2. Please enter another character, character 3. If you would like to be more precise with the user, you could say something like one last character here. And that really gives the impression to the user that, hey, okay, I'm done entering characters now. Next, we have a display. This, again, so prompt indicates to the next developer in the chain that we are creating a two-way communication between the program or the process and the end user. Display, on the other hand, simply indicates that the program or the process is going to give to the user some kind of message. There's no expectation of communicating two ways here. It's a one-way communication. So we hope you have a nice day, space, and then char 1, char 2, char 3. This way, we're going to display on screen, we hope you have a nice day. There's going to be a space there, and then we're going to output whatever characters it is that the user inputted. So character 1, character 2, character 3. So that's what we would expect there. Now, the very next thing, we have end, and it's the name of the module. So we have end, display, welcome, message. Again, I'm a big believer in copying and pasting. For some people who are far more accurate typers than me, that takes time away, but in my experience, it's been if you can copy and paste from a line that's already been vetted as correct, it takes less time. The one additional thing we have here is lines 3 through 9 essentially belong to lines 2 through 10. So here on line 2, this is the beginning of our module display welcome message. Here on line 10, we are ending display message. So what we want to do is indent everything that's happening here inside on lines 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now the way I did that, and the way you can do this in any, for the most part, now I understand that that is a check that I cannot cash. I'm going to use the word any, but maybe there's a weird typing program out there that won't allow you to do this. But in Word, in Notepad, on a Mac if you're in TextEdit, here if you're in Sublime Text, if you simply highlight a range of lines and hit Tab, you are going to get that entire range of lines to tab over one tab space. If there was a need for us, I'm just making a demonstration, I'm not saying that this is appropriate, we could tab these over by simply going to the line and hitting tab. If we needed to get these lines back on the same tab indent, we would hold shift and hit tab, and that is going to get us to move our lines over to where we expected them to be. So this block of code right here is what the pseudocode style we would expect is. Things to see here, the module name goes on the top, and that same module name goes on the bottom. We indent inside of that, and honestly that's the thing I do last. We indent inside of that to indicate that these steps belong to this module, and we have uppercase for all of our action keywords here, prompt, get, and display, because that is going to indicate to the next developer in the chain what it is that you are looking for in the way of functionality from those lines of code.